possible.
What we're gonna talk about today? Marshmallows, that's what? Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Chef Nikki here. I took a little break, but I'm back and I got a brand new camera. Look at that, so clear. So today we're gonna be making marshmallows specifically to go on top of our hot chocolate. Because it's Christmas time. It's time to get out those beautiful hot beverages and pipe meringue-like things on top and light them on fire toasty nice. Sit by the fire and enjoy. In order to make our marshmallows today, we're gonna first make an Italian meringue and then we're gonna fortify that with gelatin. It's pretty simple. There are 3 types of meringue. Today we're gonna make that Italian meringue, but there's also Swiss meringue and common French meringue. All right guys, so the best way to make a meringue is, there's a couple little tricks. One of the tricks is that you have to make sure that all of your equipment is completely clean and does not have any kind of fat introduced to it. Sometimes our mixers, you know, from making icings and things like that, will have a little bit of frosting or butter at the top of our mixer. So we gotta make sure that that is completely clean. Take a clean towel and just give it a wipe so that that fat doesn't drip into your beaten egg whites and thereby deflating your egg whites before you even have a chance to make a meringue out of them. So that is the #1 easiest way to fail at making a meringue. So what I did was I washed everything first, wiped everything down, and made sure that there is no fat. Also, whatever you measure your egg whites into must be also clean and completely devoid of any kind of fat, because again, it'll just spin around in your mixer. Your egg whites will just spin around in your mixer, and what you'll have is it just won't fluff up, and you'll go, what the heck is happening here? And that's what happened. There was fat. Another little trick is that you're gonna want to take a water bath, a warm water bath, and measure your egg whites. This is just, we need 16 ounces of egg whites, so I didn't even bother putting it in a different container because why would I want to wash 2 containers? So what we do is we take our egg whites and we submerge them in a warm water bath to bring them up to room temperature. And the reason why we do that is so that we have maximum fluffage when we make our meringue. Because if you think about it, when you're super cold, right? You're like this. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm really cold. I don't want to interact with anybody. Go away. The same thing is true for the egg whites. What happens when you're warm? You're nice and ready to chat, and you're happy, and you're at the perfect temperature. The same thing is true for these egg whites. So we have to get them to room temperature so that they have maximum flexibility. And our bubbles have maximum flexibility, and we make the biggest, fluffiest meringue ever. So step 1 is we are just going to, and we always want to wipe, whenever we put things in a water bath, always have a clean towel to wipe the bottom of that product coming out of the water bath. And the reason why is some of that water is going to drip into your mixer, or it's going to drip into your pot or whatever. It's especially true when you work with chocolate, because chocolate and water are not friends. So we just measure our egg whites right into our mixer, and we're going to whip them until they're just kind of a little bit foamy, not all the way, because in the meantime, we will be making a sugar syrup to drizzle into our whipped egg whites. And that would be the start of our Italian meringue. So, we're gonna give it a whip. And since these are at room temperature, they're nice and ready to fluff up. You can already see that there's a little bit of fluffing action. So that's all we want. We just want a little bit of activity, but not much. So our next step is going to be to make our sugar syrup. And there's actually another little trick involved with this sugar syrup. And what that is that we're going to use bottled water for our sugar syrup. We use bottled water instead of tap water a lot of times when we work with sugar. And the reason why is because there could be minerals in your tap water that end up seizing the sugar. And there's another little trick, because what will happen is your sugar will just turn into a solid, and then you'll look at it and go, what the heck is happening here? But that'll happen if there's like too much calcium in the water or too much chlorine in the water. It'll end up seizing the sugar, and you'll never have a liquid. You'll always have this solid chunky mass. and it's impossible to make a meringue with if your sugar is not liquidy. So we're just gonna add our sugar to our pot. We have bottled water here. And we also have corn syrup. And corn syrup is what's called an invert sugar. An invert sugar helps keep the sugar in a fluid state. So this is what's going to happen. This is a little science for you. This is what's going to help keep the sugar from crystallizing. It's going to protect our regular old granulated sugar, and it is going to keep the sugar in a fluid state. So you have a nice squishy marshmallow rather than a crunchy marshmallow. Although crunchy marshmallow does sound good. We want to be able to control the crunch by lighting it on fire. So what we're not going to bother this too much. We're just going to kind of bring in the sides because what will happen is the heat's going to melt our sugar and do most of the work for us. So we just want to get this till it's a little bit mixed. So we have what kind of looks like wet beach sand. And this is a labor of love because we are going to get this sugar syrup to 240 degrees. The sugar syrup, because we live on Earth and we have gravity and oxygen and all that other elements on planet Earth, the sugar syrup will hover around 210 degrees for a long time, and then all of a sudden it'll spike up. So it's not something you can just leave alone and you can say, well, it's on the stove, it's fine, because you'll go right from, you know, perfect sugar syrup to a complete caramel, burnt, never get the smell out of your drapes product. In the meantime, guys, we're gonna bloom our gelatin. So we can't just add granulated gelatin to recipes. It has to be bloomed first. The way that we bloom the gelatin is we just add some water. And in this case, we're gonna use bottled water. So we're just gonna add a little bit. Should kind of look like cream of wheat. If anybody remembers what cream of wheat looked like, it kind of looks like a spongy texture. So since we have a hot pot, we're going to go ahead and we're going to melt our gelatin over this hot pot because we don't want to add any more liquid to this. So we're just going to melt our gelatin over this hot pot and it's immediately going to turn liquidy. So you can already see it's kind of getting loose here. We don't want to dilute it any. So while that's happening, we're going to kick on the mixer. So we have liquidy gelatin that has been bloomed and then just straight up melted. Whites whipped to the very softest peaks possible. It's not even really, still pretty liquidy. And we have our sugar syrup that is boiling away, hovering around 225 degrees, 235 degrees, and it will spike up to 240. In just a minute. 3 more degrees. So this is a good position that we want to be in. The way that you're going to be successful at this recipe is by having all of your things ready, your pot ready, your mixer ready, your gelatin ready. That's called mise en place, or things in place. It's a little pro tip for you. Whenever chefs make food, we make sure that everything is in the right spot before we begin. And especially if you're dealing with sugar, because the sugar doesn't wait. Once it passes that optimal temperature, you're pretty much screwed if you don't go ahead and use it right away. We're going to stream our hot sugar syrup. So the next step we're gonna do is we're gonna stream our hot sugar syrup into our whipping egg whites. And what's gonna happen is that hot sugar syrup is gonna cook our egg whites and make this big fluffy meringue. Once that meringue appears and we have our sugar syrup already all mixed in, then the gelatin will go in, and that will actually turn our Italian meringue into marshmallows. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just line our baking sheet with a little bit of parchment paper. I'm using a half-size sheet tray. This is a standard, you know, professional half sheet tray. Cannot do this in a cookie sheet. Has to have really high sides to keep the marshmallows in. And we're just gonna put some powdered sugar down in order to help the marshmallow not stick to the pan. So it's really important we get it on the edges. So we're gonna sift it on there. I don't really care if I'm getting it all over my counter because I'm just gonna wipe it all off. Bam! The big offset spatula. All right guys, here's our marshmallows. So we're just gonna let this cool at room temperature right on the countertop to give the gelatin a chance to set up. We're gonna put it on top of our hot chocolate. All right, so we're just gonna add some milk to our pan. No big secret to this. We're just gonna add some Hershey's cocoa powder. This one is Dutch cocoa, special dark. All Dutch cocoa is an alkaline processed cocoa. And the only thing it does is take down the bitterness and increase the golden color to it. So it gives a nice, beautiful tone. And we're just gonna add just a little bit of sugar. Hot cocoa from a mix, you know, it's good for convenience sake, but there's nothing like having a delicious warm hot cocoa made from milk and cocoa and sugar. And that's really all you need. You can add a little bit of vanilla extract to it if you want to make it, you know, extra tasty. You can make Mexican hot chocolate by adding cinnamon. You can add a little cayenne pepper if you're feeling sassy. Maybe you want to add cayenne pepper and whiskey and have yourself a crazy, you know, spicy whiskey drink in the wintertime. Sounds delicious. So we put a little powdered sugar on some parchment paper on a big giant cutting board, and all we're gonna do is invert this tray on top of that and hopefully peel away that parchment paper, and hopefully it'll just go smoothly. There it goes. pull out that parchment. And we're gonna put a little bit of powdered sugar on the top, which was the bottom and now is the top, so that our cookie cutters or our knives or whatever it is that we're using to cut up this marshmallow doesn't stick. And I kind of like it because it has, you can see that the teardrop has an irregular shape, so the peaks are gonna toast more than the fatter parts. And so that's kind of why I like using shapes when I'm cutting out marshmallows. The squares are good too. You know, you could just take a knife and just run your knife down and make a couple of squares. That's freaking good. I want to take this to prom. Thanks for watching, guys. Please give me a thumbs up if you love the video. Please don't forget to hit the little bell in order to follow my YouTube channel, Nikki Talks Food. If you guys have any questions or if you want to see something, please leave a comment. This is an interactive show. Thanks, guys.